Indiana football has been slowly, or I shouldn't say slowly, steadily pulling in new commitments, about one a day. And it has literally been almost one a day over the last couple of weeks. They currently have 19 commitments. Someone is committing today. As a matter of fact, also, I think Indiana's probably in a good spot for that. We'll see. But 19 commitments, that's a healthy number.
No, that's huge. It's absolutely huge, and it's exactly what you want to see from a new staff. I mean, we've said it since the jump. There is a very clearly defined and executed plan in place. Um, the staff seems to know exactly what type of dudes they're looking for, and they seem to be pretty effective at closing the deal when they get the kids in front of them.
Yeah, and that's huge. Indiana's recruiting has been very, very solid. It is not going to knock anyone's socks off as far as ranking against some of the bigger programs, but it seems like Kurt Cignetti and crew are getting the guys they want for the most part. There's been some that they've lost right now. They lost the Burris kid to Louisville, and someone else. Oh yeah, well, everyone lost his kid to LSU. He was headed elsewhere anyway. But I talked earlier about that's the thing, Chronic, and it'll take a year. But Indiana has yet to ever land a 5-star, and that's just a threshold they have not been able to cross yet. But I think that changes sooner rather than later. It's going to take a year of proving it on the field, I think, for this staff is to prove this to the ultimate big time recruits that this is for real. And just like that, they're going to have to prove that to national pundits and even to some fans that the winning is a real possibility at Indiana in the Big Ten. I think we lost Chronic there for a second. Russell's high on caffeine this morning, he says, pointing out IU first football game in 53 days. Now, that makes it seem far away, but Chronic Hoosier back with us now. And Chronic, I was just saying that a lot of all these positives, Indiana yet to ever pull in a 5-star but I think that's something that's going to change sooner rather than later. But even with that, this staff is going to have to prove their bones to these guys on the field by winning games.
Yeah, I could hear you just a second ago, but apparently you couldn't hear me, so I jumped back off. But no, Indiana hasn't signed a 5-star commitment. They just had one on campus this weekend in Julian Lewis, however, which is nothing short of remarkable. I believe he's top 10 player. He was just on campus this weekend, according to his Instagram. Yeah, on the 7th.
Wait, okay, he was just here recently for another visit, I believe.
Yeah.
Indiana's has a real, I've said it a lot, Chronic, that Indiana's got a real shot with him. I've talked to a couple of guys that are close to that situation.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. He wasn't on campus. He was spotted rocking the Indiana jersey this weekend. Excuse me. No, but they've had him on campus. They've got his, they've got his attention. They're entertaining one of the 10 best players in the nation in the 2025 class, which is just it's unfathomable if you think about where this program was 6 months ago.
I think he was number 1 in the 26 class. He reclassified to 25, and that's the only reason he even dropped. He was number 1 in the 26 class at quarterback. And, I mentioned Indiana not having had a 5-star before. The fact that Indiana football had the number 1 recruit in the country on campus is mind-boggling, because Indiana basketball, I do not believe, can make that claim.
It's been a minute. I would have to go back and really scrub here to figure out if and when that's ever happened in the basketball world. But to see this staff being able to at least get the attention like I said, it's nothing short of remarkable, honestly. Apparently, the kids do know how to Google Coach Cignetti because they're paying attention. And I think you're probably correct. Um, at some point, you've got to put down the tape, backs up the pitch that you've made. And it's always easy the first year to sell the vision. It's all enthusiasm. It's all schematic, but there's no proof yet. At least not at the the under the current circumstances at the school, at the program that you're now selling. Um, that's one of the things that's kind of been concerning with Woodson, is now that you've got tape and now that you've got a record, how do you account for that? So there's always the tailwind of the new hire enthusiasm and the fan support and everything else that kind of rallies around the coaching changes. But I don't think it's typically as well received or as widespreadly received as what you've seen with Coach Sig's staff. And I do think part of that too, though, is knowing what you want, knowing who's going to be receptive, and focusing on where you're going to have the highest returns. And part of that is you've got to be awfully persuasive, and it's not just the kids anymore. You've got to persuade the families, the circles, and this in some cases now you're dealing with agencies, with NIL and all that brings. But there's a clear vision for the program that's being shared, and it's being accepted. And I think certainly a welcome sight for Indiana, but it's momentum. I think I don't think you can overstate how important momentum is on the recruiting trail. We've said it before in regards to basketball conversation. Success breeds success. Success attracts successful people. And it's really difficult to sell a program that hasn't had much success, to find the talent that's going to change it. But the culture seems to be attracting, and it's just a wonderful thing. And with the schedule setting up the way it does for Indiana this year, there's certainly going to be a roadmap to a lot of wins, likely a bowl berth. But at the end of the day, you've got to play it out on the field. What's on paper doesn't matter at this point. Certainly promising, but at the depth chart, when you look at the needs, you see a staff that's been very effective at identifying and accounting for the needs with players. And it's not just that they brought in talent; they're establishing depth of talent. They're establishing continuity between classes. So you're bringing in guys that are willing to maybe take a back seat for a short time, to get bigger, stronger, and faster, and earn the right to be a starter. And that's probably been IU's greatest issue. It's obvious to see the lack of skill position. We don't have receivers. We don't have a line, whatever. But even when IU's been its best in the last decade, where the reality comes in is usually when you get down the depth chart, when you get into the second and the third string guys, and the depth of talent and the drop off has often been insurmountable. So obviously you got to get some guys on the field, but getting guys behind them willing to step up is going to be absolutely critical if this staff's going to have long-term success here, and they appear to be checking off all those boxes right now.
Yeah, and looking forward to seeing how that continues to play out. And this I've talked a lot about this upcoming schedule because of how it lays out, and it is just, even knowing what Indiana has done, that to me that's easy to just wash away. I could care less. I look at what is the situation now. The staff is completely different. The team is very different, and this schedule is a dream, to be honest with you, for Indiana. And what just straight up, what do you think the over and under for wins are for this team this year with this schedule?
I wish I could be more confident. I think 8 is very attainable for this team with this schedule that they have right now. And in my heart, I feel like I'm underestimating. I think this is as favorable as a schedule as I can remember in my life as an Indiana fan. Um, it's set up too perfectly right now. I think 9 wins is possible. I think possibly even 10. But I think 8 is a realistic expectation, and that sounds completely crazy seeing where the program's been. Um, I just think the Big Ten is ripe for the picking right now. And anytime you can bring in 8 home games, um, when you're not filling a majority or half of them with the Michigans, the Ohio States, the Penn States of the world, uh, you just love to see it. But no, I think this is a team that absolutely goes bowling this year, and I 9-win Indiana is certainly in play, but I think 8 should be a reasonable expectation.
And yes, that does sound crazy, folks. I
It
understand.
does.
I'm on the same boat. The first thing I say is, okay, I know this sounds crazy because I know it does. But I can't help it. I look at that schedule and I'm like, all right, well, UCLA is going to be the first test. I've talked about this a number of times because it comes kind of early, and it's on the road, new coach, new team, and it wasn't exactly a great team last year. So is there a chance? Oh, there's absolutely a chance. Is it going to be easy? No, because you still have to travel, but you're not going to the big house. You're not going to the shoe. There's not going to be 80,000 people there waiting on you. There might be 40. So it's not going to be this daunting environment. If you could get by that game, there is a path to a 6-0 start for Indiana.
No, and that's the thing that I keep circling back to is this team could be bowl eligible before it has its first loss. I think that's totally reasonable because you only got 2 road trips. You're going to UCLA. You're going to go play on Northwestern's practice field, which it's a whole nother conversation. But nonetheless, the 2 winnable road games, and then you still got, uh, you still have 4 home games left after that, and the next one of which being Nebraska. You don't have to go to Washington in your first meeting with the Huskies. Um, Michigan State being your 3rd road game on the schedule, and then the horseshoe. I, shoe's always going to be the shoe, but there's no reason that Indiana could not potentially be 3-1 on the road this season as well, which is, again, we're talking crazy here. Fortunately, my doctor's, if he's listening, he can come check me out or have me checked in. But it's just the way the cards lay out this year. Obviously they have to meet the expectations, and obviously, admittedly, my expectations are extraordinarily high. But I'm all in on the Sig train, man. And the more I'm out and about talking to guys on the team, on the staff, it just very much you get the sense that the energy is contagious, the professionalism, and I'm in no slam whatsoever on the prior staff, but it's just such a welcome change to go from talk about loving each other to just openly and just coldly embracing violence in the way that violence is leveraged in the game of football. And I understand those are just different leadership styles, but the old school guy in me is just my mouth waters every time I hear them telling stories. Sig isn't here to make a lot of friends. He's here to win football games, and he's going to ask a bunch of young men to go out there and perform a job. Each one of them individually has their jobs, and they're being held accountable for performing their jobs. And they're developing people in line to take those jobs if the performance isn't on par with the expectation. And again, it's just music to this Hoosiers' ears when you hear the guys talk about it. But when you see the confidence, and I know everybody's confident in the offseason, everybody's undefeated in the offseason. This is a different level. And I've been around this town for a long time. I've been in close proximity to the department for quite a long time. And I will say 100% there's a different energy around the Indiana football program right now. And it's refreshing to say the least.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and thank you for enjoying our content and videos. And make sure you hit that subscribe and notifications toggle so you don't miss out on anything, whether it's Indiana Hoosiers, the Boilers, the Colts, the Pacers, Indiana high school action, whatever's happening in sports. We're trying to bring it all to you, and make sure you don't miss out on a thing. Again, hit the subscribe button for us. Helps us out a ton. We appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much.